Well, thank you all. We'll go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for attending today's webinar. We want to make sure that you're aware that after today's webinar is concluded, you will be receiving a link to our recording. We'll make use of a Q&A at the end of this session. And also there will be two additional webinars focused on order to cash and then finally record to report. And those will be coming very soon. Should you have any questions regarding this webinar, feel free to reach out to marketing@joseph@kognitos.com. Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Cook, and I lead customer experience for Kognitos. I've been engaged with customers in the latest technologies for at least 20 years. My background was initially in ERP systems, followed by BPM, and then wireless technology. And for the last 6 to 7 years, I've been highly engaged in automation. And I'm really pleased to be joined by Ashish Singla, and I'll let him say a few words about himself and his background.
Very good afternoon, Peter, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the audience who's joining from different time zones. Thanks for having me here on this webinar. Very excited to talk about the AI and Gen AI topic in next 45 to 60 minutes. Ashish Singla, based in New Jersey. I work for Wipro and head the finance and accounting practice globally for them. Now, working in this space from more than 25 years in various roles, from operations to transitions to transformation. And I've worked with multiple customers who come from different industries, specifically in the CFO space.
Hey, Ashish, could you provide us a little bit of background on your journey that led to you now serving as the global head for finance for business transformation?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I started this journey, as I mentioned, more than 25 years back, and I'm associated with the GBS, GCC industries. And it's been very enriching and very exciting journey over the years, where we have seen how CFO roles and how the CFO organizations per se, has transformed the way the work used to happen 25 years back, 15 years back, 10 years back, and how it happens now is completely different from the legacy systems of ERPs to cloud computing, from managing the Excel sheets to autonomously leveraging some of the platforms, RPA and AI solutions, and from just completing the task to extracting value from these processes, is what I have seen transformed over the period of years. And that is what, I feel excited about in this role. It has been very enriching journey. And some of the examples and experience I would love to share on this webinar as well.
Excellent, thanks. All right, and some of our audience may not be very familiar with Wipro. Can you say a few words just to orient the audience to what Wipro does?
Absolutely. And I believe anybody who's working in the GBS and GCC space would be very familiar with Wipro. But having said that, Wipro is one of the leading, largest, and the trusted organization which is driven by purpose. There is a lot of charitable work in the education field for the underprivileged kids is what being done at Wipro as well. We are about $11 billion in terms of revenue size, serving more than 1,300 customers globally. In the BPO space, we are, and specifically in finance and accounting, we are working with CFOs from last more than 20 years, recognized as leaders in the market because of the implementations, because of what we bring onto the table from a technology and innovation standpoint. And overall, we are present in more than 65 countries globally. So a large organization who provides services in IT, BPO consulting, and lead the transformation for many of our customers.
Yeah, well, thank you for that background. All right, now we're going to cover the agenda for today's webinar. So we're going to begin looking at the current state and opportunities with pursuing AI. Then we're going to look at differentiators and the partnership, whether that partnership is with Cognitos and our product, and also that partnership with Wipro. And we're going to, Ashish will then share some successful stories, and for those that are considering getting started in their automation AI journey, some guidance on getting started and pursuing that successfully. So with that, we're now going to look at why should you pursue AI solutions right now, and versus waiting and seeing what happens. Go ahead, Ashish, if you could expand on this.
Before I give a perspective on why AI is important in a P2P world, right? I would like AI with two similar journeys. One is of Tesla. We all know Tesla, which utilizes similar kind of a technology and incorporate this technology into their cars. And second is RPA. And very interesting point to note here is the trajectory of how the growth in these two technologies or in these two products have taken place in last many years. Journey can be divided in three parts. One is the early year or the year when these technologies are being explored. Second part is the growth, when the growth kick in, and finally is when the market or the explosive expansion which happened in these two technologies. And if you really see in the early years, when Tesla was still exploring, was only one model. It was able to sell 2,500 cars, right? It was not big. It was still testing how the technology works. People are getting used to it. And then comes the growth phase when they learned about the technology, they knew how it's going to behave. They introduced new models, therefore, and the sales shot up from 2,500 to more than 250,000 cars globally. That was a big sale. And that was the phase of growth which came in. And finally, they expanded and the growth exploded globally for them when they introduced two more models, Model Y and Model 3. And from 2,000 to 250,000, the sales grew up more than 1.2 million cars in a year. So these three phases came over a period of time. They learned about the technologies, they brought in new products, and hence, they become the market leader. Same trajectory happened for RPA, where they were exploring something in the initial years, 1.4 billion a market size to 10 billion plus a market size, and now it is exploding, from a market size standpoint. Where we are, therefore, in AI is at a cusp of explore and growth. We are where we are understanding how AI is working, how Gen AI is working, and from here, the potential to grow and expand is more than 40% at an annual rate. This technology and the capabilities will grow exponentially. Currently, if I look at AI, it's about a 39 billion market. And, with a 40% annual growth rate, you can very well imagine how the trajectory is going to look like. And therefore, it becomes very important for us to look at what use cases we have, to look at what are the implementation of AI which we can bring in. I totally, when I go to the meetings and when I speak in the market, I hear that we should go slow, we should take a cautious approach when it comes to AI. I completely agree. We need to take a cautious approach, but we should keep an eye on how this trajectory is going to look like in coming years. And I'm sure we don't want to miss a boat. So, this is the context I want to give, is that similar technologies, similar concerns people had in the market for them as well, and they have shown growth. And AI has a bigger potential, when it comes to business processes and implementation of AI in those areas. With that, I can cover up some aspects on the P2P side as well. On therefore now how AI is going to implement in the P2P, and we can cover that in the forthcoming sections as well, Peter.
Yeah, perfect, Ashish. And what you're saying in terms of proceeding with caution a little bit, and that's what we see in the market today. Very few AI solutions have actually been deployed in production. And can you provide some insights about where, say, those speed bumps are when you're engaging with customers in those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, if you really see the penetration of AI at an enterprise level, ranges between 5 to 10%, and in certain organizations they are still at the starting point. So AI and Gen AI today is at a point where, as I mentioned in my previous section as well, is where we are at a cusp of explore or initial years and growth. And from here, the anticipation by various analysts in the market is that by 2027, 70% of the organizations will have AI or Gen AI in some form or shape. So but still, it is 5%. What is stopping organizations from going ahead is there is a perception, or there is a fear that it creates hallucination. Yes, it creates hallucination if the data is not correct, right? Large language models can provide the answers. If you go to and use Chat GPT, you will see, you ask any question and it provides you answer, even if it doesn't know. So that is one of the concern which the people have, that it can create hallucination. And it is very, very important in finance and accounting organizations, where we depend a lot on numbers, right? So what if it gives you a wrong information? Transparency. I mean, AI works in the background. You can't see that. The processes happens. It automate the stuff. So the transparency concern is there, that I will lose control on a particular process, right? I will lose control on what is happening behind the screen, behind the scenes and screens. There are other concerns on the data side. The data is not clean. There is a lot of erroneous data. It will take a lot of effort to clean that. These are the concerns which the organization has. But let me tell you, as I mentioned, that we are at a cusp and growth is going to come. So we need to start testing more. We need to start testing the use cases, bring in different approaches where we can address the concerns of hallucination, transparency, data, and move forward to bring AI more in the mainstream and more in the processes more holistically. And this is going to happen, as I mentioned, in by 2027, 70% of the organizations are going to use AI or Gen AI in some form or shape in finance and accounting. So we better prepare ourselves to go in that direction.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Ashish, for expanding on that. And also want to let the audience know that just recently, Kognitos has published a webinar, first of this series on trusted AI, that can be found on our website at cognitos.com. So for these types of attributes, and also understanding and learning how Kognitos addresses each of these attributes that one should look for in determining and choosing a trusted AI solution, that can all be found as part of that webinar. So we'll next proceed in terms of understanding what are current trends and where AI could make a significant impact in the procure-to-pay process area. So Ashish, now we've got the attention of the finance professionals that have joined us. Can you expand on this?
Sure, Peter. So today, if you look at the trend in the P2P area, how and what kind of technologies are being picked up from an automation standpoint, we see that about 30 to 35% of the solutions are about e-invoicing, right? E-invoicing solution is the choice of automation in P2P today. Some of the other solutions are like self-serve, vendor portal, RPA, in certain cases, platform solutions, which are automating the workflows and so on and so forth. Those are some of the popular solutions today, right? But what those solutions does not address is exception handling. About 56 to 60% of the processes today give exceptions. Now, those exceptions comes during the invoice processing, whether it is it is about quantity mismatches or price mismatches, or it can come during the vendor query process as well. There is no straightforward query, for example, and then you have to go and do certain research. So there is a lot of exception which agents or the people who are working on the P2P process manages today. That still remains an unautomated area. Let me put it that way, right? Another issue which we have seen is process standardization. Close to about 40% of the processes are not standardized because of multiple ERPs, because of the data flows which comes in from multiple systems. And that, is one area which can be explored and addressed using AI and Gen AI solutions. And finally, data consolidation and reporting. I mean, 30% of the cases where we see and the processes we see, data consolidation is an issue, and because of which you cannot report properly, and there is a challenge in extracting the value from the from this work stream as well. So therefore, these are the opportunities which will be addressed by AI and which will be addressed by Gen AI solutions, where we are seeing exceptions being handled by AI, processes being more standardized, and therefore application of AI becoming more relevant, and data which is more clean gives you more insights and reporting, right? So these are the areas, and this is what we must look out for when we are beginning, or we are going on in a journey of P2P transformation. And by 2027, as I mentioned, 70% of the businesses and the processes will have AI and Gen AI in some form or shape. You will see exception handling being addressed, standardized processes, and more reporting and value coming out from these process
Yeah, and I
areas.
also want to add on this, Ashish, like when with the exception handling, so in many different automation platforms, when there is a business exception, that automated process or automated workflow just will simply not work, right? And so as part of that, you're bringing a human into the loop because something's happened. It's a new vendor, new customer, or some other business variant has happened, requiring that the human input. And so when you think about that, wanting to achieve high rates of straight-through processing and bringing the human in only where that guidance is needed. Today, at around 56%, that would definitely be some impact to productivity.
Yes, and we talk about touchless processes, but we ignore aspects on exception handling, process standardization, etc., which actually is a roadblock in achieving 100% touchless or close to 100% touchless process performance, right? So I think these are very important areas which we should watch out for and look for, in the transformation initiatives which we are taking.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know we talked about, kind of the state of the market and also, the areas for significant value with AI automation in P2P. So with that, can you take us through some successful transformations that you've been a part of and what the audience know, kind of what's possible?
Absolutely. When we at Wipro look at the process transformation, implementing AI or Gen AI solutions, and for that matter, other automation solution, we look at from four lenses: process, compliance, reporting, and value. And I believe, whenever you all in the audience, people are starting their journey or kind of revisiting that, if you look at these areas, that'll help you define what is the application of AI and Gen AI and these automation solutions can be. These case studies are around that. I will cover compliance. Historically, P2P area is considered as transactional um, because of the high volume of invoices we have to process, because of the high volume of PO and PR, which the teams manage, and because of that, we focus on uh, processing more and more, and we ignore some of the areas like compliance. Fraud detection is a very real thing, when we look at the P2P process, right? Exposure in this area can be very, very expensive. Fraud itself can cost an organization about 0.5% to 3% of their revenue. And if as a sample we pick $1 billion organization, we are talking about a 5 million to about 30 million in terms of exposure. So compliance can really be costly. And my first case study, which I'm going to talk about here, is about compliance, where leakage can happen because of these compliance issues, where leakage can happen in, for example, travel and expense claims, which is a part of the P2P process. It can happen because of the duplicate payments. It can happen because of the abnormal payments, because somebody is not able to identify a trend which can go wrong in a processing. Normally, from a vendor, I receive a $5,000 invoice, but all of a sudden I started receiving 10,000, 15,000, 50,000. Now, that can be a business requirement, and because of which I'm getting it. But these are the trends which, as a human, we can miss and AI can pick. So, first case study is about compliance, where the leakage because of the duplicate payments, leakage because of the abnormal payments, and leakage because of the non-compliance with the policies is costing the customer a lot. And because of the implementation of the AI, we were able to save a lot of money, not only from a productivity and efficiency standpoint, but also from a value point of view. And if I go back and reiterate the 4 buckets which you should consider while implementing AI is process, compliance, reporting, and value, and see in which of the bucket your problem statement fits in, and bringing the right kind of a technology and solutions from an AI point of view. So that's first case study, which is very, very relevant in the compliance area. Second is looking at the process. That's in my process bucket, where there is a lot of high touch. um, the nature of the beast is that in invoice processing, people will spend a lot of time in data punching. So how you can implement smart solutions where data is extracted smartly. There are OCR solutions in the market from last 20-25 years, but AI based OCR data extraction is something which is a very popular, anyways, a case study, and a lot of organizations has implemented that. It can take your process to greater than 90%, right? So that's the case study in the process bucket. Finally is the reporting and value. If you look at the last case study over here, lack of timely insight. Now again, considering P2P transactional, while we do that, we ignore that the kind of value it can create, the insights it can generate for you, and the money you can save from that. And if you don't get the timely insights into what the paying vendor is going through, or am I getting any delayed payment, or am I paying over or less, that can disrupt your business and your, for example, production line for a manufacturing organization, right? Therefore, timely reporting, timely insights can create a lot of value, for the customers, whether it is discount capture, late payments, it is about, any issue with a particular vendor over and over again. All of that can add up and create value. So when we look at AI, and when you look at AI, please try and see which bucket it fits in: process, compliance, reporting, and insight. These are the case studies, Peter, I wanted to share. But of course, as we go on, I will share some more examples.
No, really appreciate that. That's great. Good advice and good input. So now that we understand how customers can apply AI to the purchase to pay area, what additional ways out there could AI be adding value?
There are many, many ways. There are so many. So there are so many things which we can do with P2P. What I have seen in my experience is we are at a, as I mentioned, we are at a explore and at a beginning stage on how AI can apply in a CFO organization. And therefore, we are looking at it from a point solution standpoint. We are not looking holistically. I'll come to the holistic point, in a couple of minutes. But talking about point solutions and the areas where AI interventions and Gen AI interventions can apply is given on the screen. Whether it is, and look at P2P, right? You need to do vendor proposal evaluation. You need to do their performance benchmarking. What is the scoring of a vendor one versus vendor two? Uh, when you go down the process value chain, you need to review the contracts. You have to process an invoice, index that. You need to identify the anomalies, which I talked about in the previous section as well. There's a lot of things therefore where AI can play a role, and all these areas where you can provide either a natural language processing, predictive AI, strategies, or a prescriptive AI strategies. These are the use cases which you should look for. That's from an AI point of view. And now, with the advancement of AI and moving into Gen AI interventions, a lot of self-service analytics you can do. You need reporting. Gen AI can prepare reports, for you and your P2P organization and give you a lot of insights and reporting. Virtual assistants to help the employees raising a PO or a PR, or vendors addressing their queries as well, is something which is a very well established use case in the market now. Fraud detection, compliance is where AI and Gen AI can help you, in a very big way to identify fictitious invoices, abnormal amounts, policy violations, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple use cases, Peter, again, where we can implement in a different way. But fundamentally, my suggestion will be to look in the four buckets, which is process, compliance, reporting, and value, and look holistically. Otherwise, the ROI which comes from the AI and Gen AI solution might not be as attractive. More holistic you go, more ROI you will get.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ashish. I know people are looking at this level of detail of, I know it's coming down from the C level to make use of AI, but I don't know how to and where to apply it. So I think this level of detail is it's really appropriate for what people are looking for. So, what advice also do you have for for companies in general that are considering the use of AI automation as a means of improving their day-to-day operational efficiency?
Yeah, I mean, talking about use cases is one thing. Bringing it to life is another.
Mm-hmm.
So my view and my suggestion in this area is that there are certain things which you must consider while finalizing your AI solutions, and also assessing what is the impact it can create. Uh, Always start from the data. So data, I think, is the most important thing for any AI solution to work. And in data, you need to find out two things. One, what is the source of the data? Identify that. Do you know your data source, or you don't know, right? If you don't know, you need to figure out. But data sources in P2P can be ERP systems, can be PO systems, can be vendor management systems, from where a lot of information is coming in for you to process an invoice, for you to create a PO, right? For you to monitor a PO through the life cycle, and to address the vendor queries and to make the payments automatically, right? So there are a lot of sources. Identify the data source. Second in the data bucket is data hygiene. Now, you can identify a data source, but if data itself is erroneous and has a lot of gaps, you will face challenges, in the output which you are getting once you implement AI. Now, this data hygiene issues can be because there are multiple data sources that itself. Data source one can have 5 fields. Data source two can have 4 fields or 10 fields. You need to synthesize that, right? You need to figure out and make sure that data which is flowing in is what you need. Another can be sometimes, as when the data goes through the life cycle, or when it originates, there is an error itself. The data tagging, for example, in by agent one versus agent two, both can tag the data in a different way. Same output, same process, but data tagging is different. So we need to make sure that data hygiene is taken care of, right? So these two things in the data bucket. Then comes the issue or the challenge of integration with the systems. For AI to work on its own, it needs to speak to various systems. So you need to figure out if you have SAP or you have Oracle, you have any other system uh, with which the data is going to interact. What are the integration strategies you are going to bring in, right? I think very, very important. Do that upfront. Partner with your IT teams, which will help you, define your roadmap and design your roadmap very clearly along with the timelines. Uh, Next point is look at holistic solution. Don't go for point solution, because point solution, as I mentioned, is not going to give you the ROI, right? So look at holistic solution. Now, what does that mean is lay out your P2P process from start to end and see how you can redesign or you can introduce AI into the process areas. Now, that can mean taking away some of the existing technologies, but once you do that, it will give you larger benefits from an end-to-end standpoint. So therefore, must look at holistically, and then finally take care of your data policies and compliance policies to protect privacy. It's very important. In finance, we have access to a lot of numbers and data. It can be vendor information, it can be any other internal information of an employee. So make sure that your data policies and compliance policies are in place and aligned with your AI strategy so that you protect the privacy. I believe these are the fundamentals, which you take care. And I'm very, very sure, as you go on your journey, you will face some other challenges. But if you have take care of these things, probably, you will face less pain throughout the journey.
Yeah, very good advice, Ashish. Thank you. And Wipro can utilize as it's applying advancements in the P2P area, any given technology. And can you provide some insights in terms of why do you choose to utilize Kognitos?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'll give you my 2 cents on that. Wipro, is an IT BPO consulting company, and because of that, because of our legacy, we understand the AI. Wipro developed its own AI platform, and that was, not today, it was last 10 to 15 years since when we are working on AI solutions and how we can, implement AI into the business processes. So we understand it pretty well. And we work with multiple technologies, Peter, you rightly said. But why Cognitos? My experience and what we have seen Cognitos do for business processes is number one, handle the exceptions well, right? This is one of the opportunity area, if you recall, I talked about in previous sections. Exception handling is done seamlessly by Cognitos in the processes like P2P. And what is not done, there is a human intervention possible, right? Where any exception which is not learned by the system, there is a human intervention. And once that work is done 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, the system again learns and manage that exception as well. So exception handling, I think is one of the good points, Peter, which I noted about Cognitos. Second is, what we term as corporate memory. In 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 a shared service environment, in a GBS or a GCC, you call it, with whatever name, there is a issue of attrition, people leaving, and when they leave, the knowledge goes with them. So how do you ensure? And we struggle a lot, and we discuss a lot, and we solution a lot in this particular area. That how do we retain that knowledge, right? And that is beauty of the AI and the Gen AI based solution which Cognitos provide is it documents the process exactly the way a human is going to process that, right? And because of which the corporate memory is created, and therefore there is a reduced dependence on a particular person and the knowledge that person has. There are I've seen knowledge libraries. There are libraries with version, and through which we can see, okay, what the system has learned over a period of time and whether that learning is correct or not. So not only you can see that, you can audit that and check whether that learning is correct or not. So I think corporate memory is another point which in future, once we see the expansion in this market, Peter, the corporate memory is going to play a big role in AI's application in the business processes.
Yeah, just on that point, Ashish, you think about, gosh, what if you'd had that 3 years ago? And you imagine people that had that deep subject matter expertise as it pertains to certain handling of certain vendor documents or billing codes. And then if you were had that and that was retained in a system that knew how to handle that, you know, it's pretty significant and amazing if you think about what's possible over time by retaining that.
Yeah, it's significant that what is possible, and the possibilities are very exciting, Peter. The
Mhm.
possibilities, how we can implement this and how it can transform the way the industry is working today, the way we are handling absenteeism, attritions, the knowledge maintenance, all that is, very exciting to see that how it's going to change in the future as well. So very exciting part, corporate memory. And then, another point is how now, therefore, if I learn something in US as a geography, which I'm supporting, can I replicate that in Europe or can I replicate that in Asia Pacific? That's another challenge which is being faced in the GBS and the shared service environment today. That how you, and even at a client side, that how you replicate the knowledge and the automations across the globe. If I implemented for one geography, to build the same RPA solution for another geography, there is a coding, there is a development, there is a testing which needs to be done again. And I guess uh, what I have seen in Kognitos is that this is possible with only a click of button. You don't have to write the codes, you don't have to write any programs. If a particular scenario and a learning from a geography is applicable in other geography, you can click check certain fields and you can apply that learning and the system will start working and following the same SOP there as well, right? As an example, if in US the policy is that approver needs to approve any invoice over $100, but in Europe you want to implement the same thing, you can click and the system will start. You can click certain buttons and the system will start processing it the same way, right? How it is doing in another. I think one-click application of learning is again, very exciting and is going to change the speed at which you can bring the learning to different geographies, is very, very exciting. Uh, Cognitos look at end-to-end solution, in my experience, and therefore it reduces the technical debt. Today, what we see in multiple scenarios with customers is that they have systems over systems, right? And one system is doing OCR, another system is doing, let us say, data punching, another system is a workflow system. Uh, Cognitos automation is end to end, and therefore you don't need so many different solutions
Yeah.
and so many different applications. Hence the IT landscape becomes much more simpler, and the savings on the IT side as well are very, very significant. So technical debt reduction is, I believe, is a big advantage of implementing Cognitos. And finally, the way you know of course, it does role segregation and audit. That's another beauty. But another point I want to highlight is on reporting side. It is not a it with Cognitos, the AI is no more a box. You can see what is the adoption rate of this technology, whether the system is able to process 50% of exceptions, 40%, 30%, or 80%. You can see that what is the adoption, and therefore what is the value it is giving you, what is the profitability, how your cost of processing going down, how many people you need, because Cognitos is managing exception. Therefore, your requirement of people goes down and system takes over. So check all that along with learnings and corporate memory I talked about, exceptions. You can audit each and every step and see. So it no more, becomes a black box for the users, and it gives you the progress report, on a real-time basis as well. So I think that's one of the differentiator which I would like to call out. Otherwise, all the other reportings on turnaround time and SLAs and operational reporting, that is always there. But this is something, which is very, very exciting to see that you can actually check what is the adoption rate, when you are using Cognitos.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Ashish. And really appreciate, your participation and all this input and guidance you've been able to provide the audience. We have just a few minutes, and so perhaps I would just focus on perhaps two questions and to wrap up this webinar. But the first one that I'm seeing is why utilize AI versus any other technology? And I personally, I would think that without AI, you're not going to be able to achieve the same positive business outcomes. You're going to be limited, and it's going to just stay. Whether you're able to achieve a 70 or 80%, say, straight through processing rate, that's you've made the investment and that's what you're getting, but then you're going to get stuck there. Would you want to add to that, Ashish?
I agree with you, Peter. As a user of the technology and, as a practice, a practitioner, I can tell you that AI brings a lot of flexibility, right? I talked about, one-click application of learning. It is not rigid. Some of the technologies of the past, if you see, are rigid. You need to go through the development phase. You need to do coding. You need to do programming for a small change as well. What AI brings and can potentially bring more is a lot of flexibility. So this technology is going to, make you much more faster. Your speed to savings can be much more, at a much more faster. And therefore, I see a clear advantage on why you see AI versus some other technologies.
Yeah, there's another interesting question, and it's relevant, especially with what's happening, I think, in the field. And that's, this person is asking about why not just giving the employees co-pilots, and that's interesting. I think that if there is a desire to allow innovation in a personal automation space, that makes sense. But when we're talking about the enterprise business transformation, where end-to-end complex processes are being engaged, and true enterprise transformation is the goal. I believe that you've got to be utilizing a system like Kognitos. What would you say about that, Ashish?
See, I use Copilot all the time, but definitely not for the invoice processing kind of functions. If I have to draft an email and I have to, summarize a chain of emails and draft, a nice paragraph, of course, Copilot can work beautifully over there. But when it comes to functions like P2P, O2C, R2R, and business functions, I believe, it's very domain centric. And AI in the future is moving towards being domain centric. There is a lot of relevant data and contextualized data, which is utilized to create these solutions. So therefore, looking will not be the right approach. The right approach will be to look at, some of the very specific solutions like Cognitos, where you are building the IPs, you are building the domain specific processes as you go, because see, your system is learning as well. There is a lot of knowledge which is going into AI, and that's why we say it's a self-learning, and those are the technologies and strategies which we use. So, and don't forget the guardrails, the compliance policies and privacy policies, that needs to be a part of your solution as well. And hence, generic versus specific, the future is for business processes and for functions like P2P, O2C, where we deal with a lot of numbers, etc. You need to have your specific solutions, which takes care of your privacy, your compliance, your data issues, and so on and so forth. And it learns,
Yeah.
your process go and give you the right.
Yeah, I think one of those key points that you mentioned earlier, Ashish, though, in the webinar was, when someone can use a Copilot to improve their day-to-day operations, but when that person, for some reason, it leaves the organization, all knowledge that ways of working are gone with that type of scope and that type of technology. So another consideration that you touched on earlier. Well, I see that we're at time. Really looking forward to working with you and the future upcoming webinars of order to cash, then record to reports that are coming in the next few weeks. Thanks everyone for participating today.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks, everyone.